Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Backchat from the Arc in Headingley. And your panel today, we've got the former Great Britain international Gary Schofield, who's still moaning about not being selected for the 1995 World Cup. Also, Chris Irvin from the Times and Sunday Times newspaper, and Martin Sadler from League Express newspapers is with us as well. Gentlemen, this is the one we're calling Magic, the Magic Backchat, because we're going to spend the next hour trying to make Scully disappear. But the Magic weekend, how good was it? Good for you?
I think it was excellent, to be honest with you, and I think the sole purpose, and I think they achieved it this time, was more fans staying in the stadium, getting there early before the games and watching all the games. So overall, I think it's been the successful one and the great location in Newcastle, not just for the Rugby League, but also too with the hospitality, the North East people bought into it. So yeah, I would say it's the most successful one at the moment, David. Yeah.
How did you find the experience?
Best ever, absolutely best ever Magic weekend. You know, I think we all enjoyed Manchester, didn't we? And part of the reason for Manchester being so good was that the stadium was the right size. It wasn't, you know, Millennium Stadium in Cardiff was just a bit too big, really, when it was held there. But Newcastle was like Manchester in that it was the right size stadium, but also the stadium is so near to the centre of Newcastle. It just made it a great experience for everybody. And, you know, the fans turning up in fancy dress, so many of them, they all had a great time. And I would be amazed if we didn't go back there next year. You know, it looks nailed on to me, I would have said.
It'd be criminal if we don't go back next
year.
Yeah, well, Rugby League in the North East has a history of kind of coming and going rather quickly. And it suffered at Gateshead Super League, the Gateshead Thunder franchise lasted 1 year, and they kind of the demise of that. So I'm hoping that they see the value of longevity maybe at Newcastle.
Sure.
They certainly should be there next year.
Yeah.
But the great thing as well, Dave, is that there's some competition for this thing for Magic now, because Manchester do want it back. So it seems to be a bit of a fight going on for Magic. So the prestige of the event and the growth of the event is there. So I think it's been Manchester and Newcastle, but I'll be very surprised we're not back at
And that's right. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Because when you think back to 2007, when it first was played in Cardiff, there was an awful lot of opposition within the game. A lot of people said, "Oh, terrible idea. It's not worked," and so on. And you wouldn't find anybody saying that now, would you? I think it's here to stay now. And I think
it's built, but also as well, I like to go maybe a stage further from take an international match up there, because the locals certainly bought into it, and I don't think there would be an issue whatsoever of selling out a crowd. I know it's 52,000, but I don't think there would be an issue at least.
That's a great idea.
Get it between 40 and 45 people watching it there. A double header, like to say England, maybe playing Scotland there, and then say the Australian and New Zealanders. I think it would be a huge sellout and a huge success.
Well, it was one of the first international. Was it not the first international venue back in 1908? I'm looking at you, Scully, but obviously
I didn't play in it.
Clear recollection of that one, but there is history. But I'd say the most encouraging aspect of what was a terrific weekend was the Friday night, because Newcastle, formerly known as Gateshead, playing against York, they got a crowd of 2,500. All the messages coming out of that Newcastle club is that they've got an owner who loves rugby league. He's tied them up with the Newcastle Falcons Rugby Union, but he loves rugby league and he wants to make rugby league a real go in that city.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think Newcastle Thunder also deserve Magic to be back. I mean, people like Mick Hogan there, who's steeped in rugby league, he's working for the Newcastle Falcons as well. But people like that have been the bedrock of the sport in the North East, because it was when Gateshead Thunder went under, we really feared for it. But the game's hung in there, and it's junior development like the Cramlington Rockets and things like that.
Cramlington Rockets.
It's amazing, isn't it? And Newcastle Thunder are now in second place in League One, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, they've got a terrific chance of getting promotion this year.
Yeah, and we talked about the development, and all the marketing was great as well, but the development officers, my great mate Lee Crooks is up there as well. He's employed by the RFL. He's one of the development officers, so hey, this is what we needed, and good news for Rugby League. I thought it was a huge success.
There was one moment on Saturday which I thought was the magic moment in terms of the event. There was, several moments, but there was a crowd between the Hull KR Hull game and the last game Wigan Leeds. It looked full, and we've not had that at Magic before, where there's 40-odd thousand in at that moment, and it looked full. It felt like an
and not
event.
just that, but arriving for the first game. Normally, the first game is there's dribs and drabs in, but even for the first game, and the Widnes supporters were fantastic as well. Got to praise them. That it was full then, and then it just seemed like people stayed for the event rather than just for their own game. They stayed for the event. Which is great.
I think the key thing is, Dave, when you're planning ahead for Magic Weekend now, staying at Newcastle is obviously the thing to do, and to try and get one day at least where it is full, where they do sell out, and then that's going to make the event even more desirable. Let's not move to a bigger stadium until we can fill St James's Park.
Manchester will be bigger because that's why we're not there this year. They make it that's going to be 60,000 plus at Manchester next year. But it wasn't. I mean, the top of the Gala Gate wasn't open, but there's scope for development there, and you would hope that the word gets back. Great place to have the event go back next year.
I think also as well when we look at the marketing, I think we've got to applaud with the something, you know, with that with the shirt what they designed for the you know, Sir Bobby Robson Trust. And Newcastle United himself with Peter Beardsley all getting involved there, and the amount of money what's raised, I think you've got to take a huge hats off to Widnes the way they market it very well, and that may be a lead for other clubs to follow that in future.
They did some great work, didn't they?
They were excellent, absolutely, and they had a great performance as well. You know, the
Kevin Brown, of course,
Kevin Brown with the hat trick, he was selling more dummies than what Mothercare sells. To be honest with you, you know, it was great.
Or even that you used to sell.
Great to watch.
Gary Schofield's been trotting that line out now for 40 years. But on that, I mean, I was with quite a few fans from different clubs on the Sunday morning at a breakfast event, and amazing how many of them were saying how many Geordies were in amongst the crowd. The RFL are saying that 20% of pre-sales were sold locally. So you're probably looking at about 10,000 or so Newcastle people, many of whom were watching rugby league for the first time and were clearly loving what they watched.
Yeah, and the other thing, there was a real awareness in the city that the event was on, and I think that's the importance of Magic now. It's not an expansion vehicle. It was never meant to be that. It's an occasion vehicle for people to flock to, and Newcastle is a magnet in that respect. And I think rugby league lacks events, doesn't it? We've got a cup final, we've got the World Club Series, and we've got the grand final. But we need something else. And Magic, that's what's Magic's. It fulfills itself there. That's its premise, really.
But wouldn't it be great, Dave, if those 20% of people from the northeast who bought the tickets would be then going to watch Newcastle Thunder? If only a small proportion of them can then be persuaded to go and watch Thunder and boost their crowds, that would be terrific.
But Martin, that's always the problem with rugby league.
It is. Yeah.
We know we take the World Cup to Bristol and then we kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
We're great at doing that.
A question
let's hope we can learn that lesson.
A question I would like to put out there, is an issue where, from a point of view, we're looking at big events, could this maybe happen twice in the season? Could we put this on twice somewhere else?
You kill the goal. Because we've got a grand final, we've got a Challenge Cup final, we've got this, then we've got internationals.
Let's wait till we sell it out, Gary.
No, but it's Super League fixtures, you know, could we maybe put it on twice in the season
Gary,
as an event?
The problem with Magic is this, it's that extra round, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you make Magic the 22nd, one of the 22 rounds, and therefore our Hull and Hull KR are going to have to sacrifice a home game every other year? That's the difficulty with Magic.
Let me throw in an idea, Len. Let me throw in a theory, a concept. What about making the Challenge Cup something of a Magic event? So maybe the quarter-finals, you have 2 matches Saturday, 2 matches Sunday. What about the semi-finals, back to back? I mean, how good would that be?
Idea.
I think that's a great idea, Dave. Something we've but no, you've got to start thinking outside the box, haven't you? A bit? And I think quarter-finals, that the Challenge Cup has been in decline for a long time, and I think it's probably even more so now. You know, with clubs being so anxious to get into the top 8 or the middle 8, as the case may be, I think clubs are focusing on the league even more this year than they have in the past. So something like that might really be a big thing for the Challenge Cup in future.
At the end of the day, there would be purpose in the fixtures, wouldn't there? And that's why people would go and people would support it. And wherever we had it, you know, I don't know, maybe Villa Park in Birmingham, this sort of thing, people would go to that event because the fixture has purpose.
Dave, I think somewhere like Sheffield.
You need to copyright that idea because it's actually, I think it's a good one.
But if you have a semi-final, if you have back to, I mean, it all depends on the broadcasters, of course, and all that, and that all comes into it. But if you had semi-finals back to back, how good would that be? That you've got teams there who are playing for the prize of a Challenge Cup final, so the intensity of it, the neutrals would love it, but not only that, it would spice up the quarterfinals because you'd want to be in the semi-finals as much as you'd want to be in the final.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because I think the other thing as well with the Challenge Cup, this thing about the clubs that there's this kind of seeding now there. We've got problems with fixtures backing up those who played in that earlier round. I mean, Hull and Wakefield are now going to play twice in 5 days, and that's not right. So there's some problems there, but I think that's.
I'll give you a venue for your idea as well, Dave. Sheffield would be a great place, I think. You know, Bramall Lane, perhaps even Hillsborough. You know, Sheffield is another city on the edge of the rugby league area with a team of its own now doing very, very well, who could do with that boost of having a major event, you know, in their town, and I think it'd go really well.
Well, we all know we've got a great product. At the end of the day, the RFL must be sat there this week thinking, well, come and join us if you want, because quite clearly it's been a huge success this weekend. And again, if we put games on that have got purpose in them, and I'm sure it's going to be great for our game.
Magic moment. What was your magic moment?
My magic moment was Tommy Makinson coming off his wing. It was about the 480th minutes of the 480 minutes of the weekend. He comes off his wing, Darryl Clark is in possession, and Warrington looked like they might score a try that beat Saints. And he absolutely nails him with a try that Billy Boston would have been proud of.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
He hurt himself doing
He hurt himself doing it, and who wouldn't? But it was a terrific tackle.
Yeah. My magic moment, I'm still asking the question now, how did Liam Finn not score that try?
I think he's still asking the question.
Liam's not the quickest, and he'll admit that himself. But
That was a Paul Daniels moment.
he was literally 4 yards away. How did Liam Finn not score that try? And I was sat in the stand, and the Casford players on the right hand side of me, just literally 2 yards away, were all just laughing. So I could well imagine what the dressing room would have been like yesterday when they all reported there, and the bit of stick what he would have got. So Liam, what did tackle you? How come you never scored at the magic weekend?
Well, my magic moment, I think, was probably George Williams' try. Which I thought
The first. Was it the first one or the second one? The first one.
Yes, he took it brilliantly, but also there was a fantastic tackle by Zach Hardaker.
Yeah.
I mean, Williams deserved a try, but Hardaker deserved to stop him as well.
Yeah.
And we waited for the video referee, and you couldn't quite tell whether Williams had put his foot on the line or not. And you sort of wondered, are they going to disallow it or not?
Yeah.
They gave it, and I'm very glad they did.
For me, I agree completely with that.
Yeah.
If you were showing someone and saying this is the essence of rugby league, I thought that try had everything.
It did.
He had the standoff who made the break with a zippy pace and backs himself, the ball inside to Burgess. Burgess would have walked under the sticks, but he backed himself. And Hardaker, there's not a better defensive fullback in the game.
I'll tell you what, there's a really interesting... I mean, Sam Tompkins came back into action this week with the Warriors. May talk about that later. But, Tompkins or Hardaker for full-back, what a great choice that is.
We've got a lot of depth now. We've got a lot of depth now. You look at hookers, there's 4 or 5 hookers.
David, we keep mentioning it. We've mentioned it plenty of times. And I'll repeat myself again, if you want me to. Forwards were okay, outside backs were okay, full-back were okay. It's that vital one. It's the creativity, and we haven't got it.
What about Kevin Brown? Hat-trick again?
He was outstanding, wasn't he? And the thing with Kevin is when he's forwards, it's like any half-back, you can't do anything without your forwards here, but he seems to do it against the lesser sides. And my question is, when the pressure has been put on him, when questions have been asked about him, playing in big games, unfortunately he's failed out. But if he's playing with better players around him, put himself in that international team, maybe for 1 or 2 games, you never know. But for mine, he's just come up empty.
But let's face it, Widnes are a massively improving team, aren't they? When I say massively, a gradually improving team, really. They're just getting better and better each year.
Well, they're starting to show they can
and
play away.
That's under his direction as well.
They're starting to play a little bit away from home.
Well, 2 wins on grass now. 2 consecutive wins on grass. One at Wakefield for the first time on grass.
If you talk about magic men, my magic man was Matty Bowen, who's been on the sidelines for a long part of the season, basically looking after the Hampshires and Tierneys and all the rest of it. He's got his chance now. And he scored 2 tries, but he set up a try for Joe Burgess, which is completely out the top draw.
Brilliant.
He feels the kick downfield, and he just finds Burgess on the perfect angle on the post. But his try from 80 metres when he picks up and goes and holds off Danny Maguire was terrific.
But I'll tell you what as well, when you looked at Bowen when he caught that ball, you've got to give great credit to Joe Burgess, because Joe Burgess' thought was, I'll tell you what, Martin Bowen, we do this in trade. I've got to get back there because he's good to look to give that pass there. Great vision from Bowen, but even better smartness from Burgess to get himself in good position, hit that line, and Zach Hardaker thought, I can't stop this. Great try, and that was another excellent moment.
The heartbreak. Sorry, Mads, go on.
Another excellent moment I thought was Kieran Dixon when he took that interception and sped down the wing. Yeah. A classic rugby league try, wasn't it?
The other about Kieran Dixon, you watch him, he's just a blur of legs. How fast is that kid? He had a terrible... Him and Ken Seo on that side were really exposed by Mark Sneed. And Talanoa helped us out for 3 tries and was brilliant. But
defensively leaves a bit to be desired.
In possession, Kieran Dixon is excitement. He's excitement. He
personified.
Really is personified.
I'll tell you what, just to say, you talk about wingers, defensively. Well, I can tell you what, I played with one of the best that's ever been. Mr. Afire. He wasn't a very good defender, but I tell you what, he could score tries.
The courage medal and the heartbreak medal has to go to the Griffin brothers, doesn't it? The 3 of them losing the fathers in exceptionally tragic circumstances in the week. All 3 of them putting their hand up and saying, "No, we're going to play. We're going to dedicate this to our dad." And unfortunately, 1 sent off harshly, very harshly. 1 put on report and 1 sin bin.
Do you think it was harsh? I thought it was a straightforward red card.
Did you?
Stripping away everything. I thought it was a straightforward red card. There's a duty of care, and it's something we might talk about as well in terms of players and concussion. But I thought James Charles got it spot on.
I think the difficulty is, Dave, now that players who are concussed on the field tend to come off and spend the rest of the game off the field. So therefore, the players who cause those injuries, I think there's more of a sense in which we're clamping down now, and perhaps giving red cards where we perhaps wouldn't have done otherwise, before this season. And I thought Griffin's tackle was reckless.
Right.
It wasn't intentional, it wasn't malicious, but it was reckless. And I think in those circumstances, it probably was the right decision by James Child.
Yeah,
I know on Twitter a lot of people disagreed with me on that.
A lot of players, a lot of current players.
I've got to agree with the guys, to be honest with you. It was just, attack to the head there, and we all know exactly what's going on. And unfortunately, he had to go. But as you mentioned,
fortunately, young Matt Whitley wasn't concussed, was he? But even so,
And how well is he playing for an 18-year-old?
Yes,
He's playing
exactly.
terrifically.
There's a lot of new names coming in. You look at squads and you think, whoa, I hadn't noticed him coming in the last few weeks. And a lot of teams have that now, don't they? Which is good to see.
The other act of bravery, I thought, was Willie Tonga, who played 15 minutes with a broken jaw before he was taken off to hospital. Which is like that.
He's had some shocking luck, hasn't he?
Oh, but so's Todd Carney.
Cameo Carney, as he's going to be known. I don't think he's done a full 80 minutes yet,
he did nothing for 40 minutes, and then he had a great second foot. Well, he was down for half an hour, scored 2 great tries, and he saw the class. They can bring, and then he's off. He's got pectoral muscle. He's out for 2 months.
The frustrating thing about Carney is that he really looks as though he's enjoying playing in Super League when he does get the chance to play. He's a real team member, I think. You look at the way he interacts with the other guys in the team, and it's quite impressive. And it's a real shame to think he's going to be out for another 6 weeks or so.
I think as well, because his hamstring was heavily strapped. I just feel as though he's not really fully fit. Carney, well, we all know how good he is.
He's pretty good outfit, isn't he?
He's pretty good outfit,
As Paul Daniels would say, that's magic. But we'll be back with lots more chat in the second half of our show. Welcome back to Back Chat, and I'm sure we're all agreed we'd love to go back to Newcastle next year for another dose of Magic Weekend. So lots of good rugby played at Magic Weekend, but a big announcement as well. Wakefield Trinity Wildcats, the last game up against Castleford, and before their match kicks off, they announced Brian Smith is going to be their new coach.
Yeah, I think there's a collective smacking of jaws on floor, because it came out of left field. He's a big name.
Yeah.
But extraordinary now in Super League. We've been talking about the previous Australian domination of coaches. We're going to have basically 9 English coaches, a Frenchman, and 2 Australian brothers. There's only 2 brothers can make up the Australian form of domination of the sport.
One of the brothers, to be fair, is English though, isn't he? Because he coached Great Britain, so he's now English. What do you reckon, Brian Smith? Good move, because it's your team, isn't it, Wakefield? Good move?
Yeah, well, an interesting move. Whether it's a good move remains to be seen, doesn't it? But you wonder what the future holds for Wakefield, because you just can't see them now avoiding that drop into the middle 8. So the key thing is, how are they going to perform by the time they get there? Yeah. And are they going to try and do better before getting there? Because, James Webster really set the cat among the pigeons, didn't he, earlier this season when he said we're aiming for the middle 8 and that's what's important. And he gave his players an excuse not to play until then. Well, you just can't do that, in my view. That's why, I'm sure that's why I got the sack ultimately.
Oh, he didn't get the sack?
Well, he didn't get the sack, but why he left ultimately, no, that's right. But Smith has got to get the motivation and the belief back into that group of players. I mean, even at the Magic Weekend on Sunday when they played the last game, they were making such a lot of fundamental errors defensively that they just looked disheartened, didn't they? Even though they've got some young Tom Johnston, what a great try he scored. Absolutely, they've got some players who can deliver the goods in my opinion, but they just look dispirited.
One of the players he's going to have to get in line, making things tick, is Tim Smith. And he's got history with Tim Smith, hasn't he, at Parramatta, so that's a bonus.
Yeah, he has, Dave, to be honest with you, but I'm not holding back here with Wakefield. Them players are pathetic. They're heartless, they've no passion or pride in that shirt. And, at times the supporters, seem to be blaming the chairman or they're blaming the directors. The way these Wakefield Trinity players are playing, they're just quite simply not good enough. And we'll bring in a new coach like Brian Smith experience. Certainly Brian Smith is a disciplinarian. He will be something totally different to what these players have been used to. So these players, because if we look at the performances over the last 5 or 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks, starting at Warrington when they get walloped 80 points to nil, they've conceded 40s and 50s, some of the urgency and the enthusiasm, well, I tell you what, they are pathetic to that Wakefield shirt, and whether this new coach can bring that back in, I don't really think so.
I mean, he's 61, and let's not be ageist about this, that's not a great age, but he's not coached frontline for 3 years, has he? And he had great success over here when he was with the Bradford Bulls especially, and previously with Hull. Great success over here, and he's kind of been the godfather of British Rugby League coaching in many ways. But the landscape's changed a lot since he was last here.
He is, though. I mean, people like Brian Noble and so many people will go back to Brian Smith as the guru, and he is. I mean, good time at Hull and Bradford started Super League before he kind of back. He's gone to 4 grand finals. He's taken teams. He's 600 NRL games. He never actually won anything. Is he the man for this job? You need to start.
He's certainly not going to win.
Martin, you need to start in the light of Wally Lewis of Wakefield. You need to start a new magazine. Brian Smith is coming. And I hope it works out for them because, but it's going to be a culture shock for him, I think, as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. I mean, he's never won a trophy, and he's certainly not going to win one this year, is he? Let's face it, with Wakefield. So that's something he'll be used to. But
survival.
The thing about Smithy though is that he's got tremendous self-confidence and self-belief.
Yeah.
And he's prepared to talk straight to players. I think. His whole record suggests that when he walks in, those players will listen or else, and they'll perform. Or else. So I think in that sense he's a very good appointment. But the proof of the pudding is that they've got to beat clubs like Leigh and Bradford in those middle eights, and that's now become just that little bit more likely for Wakefield.
Well, I tell you again, when we look at coaches nowadays, a big essence is man management. And I tell you what, Brian Smith will come in and tell these players how pathetic they have been and how rubbish they have been. Right. So will them players? Will they be able to take open honesty and how bad a players they have been? Because quite clearly, do them players need telling that you're as good as this, you're as good as that, you're as good as... Well, quite clearly they're not. Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting on how Brian Smith manages these players to bring the best out of them.
He's going to see he's due in the country. He should be there at Bellevue on Sunday for the game against Leeds, top v bottom. So he's going to see it he's going to see Wakefield, taking on supposedly the best club in Super League at the moment. So it's an acid test for Wakefield, and he'll get a gauge just where they are. I think you're right, Gary.
I'll tell you where they are.
Yeah, rock bottom.
I'll tell you where they are. The rock bottom and rubbish. That's where they are.
But they have got the personnel there. They have got
some good players.
They've got some good players. Now he's got something to work with there. This ain't over. Nobody's been relegated at this stage. It doesn't matter where they finish after the 23 rounds in that respect. It's what happens in the middle.
Hold on. You're saying it doesn't matter. What are the performances, Chris? Right, the performances.
Yeah, but if they survive at the end of the day.
Chris, I'm talking about the here and now. Them performances for the chairman and for the supporters is absolutely atrocious.
Terrible. But it could come down to a game against Leigh or Bradford. That £1 million game. They win that. They survive.
I'll tell you what. When Brian Smith gets over, then what's he going to do? Just treat it as a pre-season.
Not
about playing. I'm going to get you to a fitness level. I'm going to get you a good side. You're going to put a bit more pace on. They're going to treat it as pre-season.
I'll tell you,
it's cheating, and it's cheating the fans, and it's cheating the chairman.
I think Brian Smith will want to start winning straight away. To be honest about it, I don't think he's not the sort of bloke who's going to come and be content to have a series of defeats.
Who can Wakefield beat
until the last day?
The next game, his first full game in charge is at home to Salford, and you have to say of all the other Super League teams, Salford are probably the team that are in the worst form.
The other game that's really interesting to look at is next month they play Warrington at home, and it'll be the first time Tony Smith and Brian Smith have coached sides against each other.
And Wakefield only going to turn around at 80-0.
80-0. It was 80-0 at Warrington. So you think Brian could improve on that a bit, couldn't you? But
have brothers coached against each other in Super League?
Brothers in Super
Kelly
League?
Kelly
brothers?
I don't think they did.
Can't recall it.
No,
can't recall it.
That'll be a bit of history.
But I mean, I know Tony for a long time has been quite keen to coach his side against Brian.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it will be because Brian's at Wakefield and he's at Warrington. Don't worry about that. There won't be any issues there, would there?
But what he's got the chance to do, and just picking up Chris's point, what he's got the chance to do now is fix things. Not necessarily say, right, the rest of this regular season is a waste of time. The rest of this regular season, it needs fixing, and he's got the opportunity to fix things and put things right before that middle eight starts. That's what he's getting at.
Well, it's a pre-season, isn't it?
Well, it's not a pre-season.
Of course it is.
It's fixing it on the run. Trying to get things right. And in the process of that, maybe winning 1 or 2 games.
The thing is, when you get to that middle 8, it doesn't matter if they've got 4 competition points in the Super League. In the middle 8, you start from 0. It's level playing field again, and off we go. Now, that's a fault of the system.
Which is a strange quirk, isn't it?
It is
a strange quirk
Maybe
of the
that's a fault of
system.
the system.
Well, as Marty said earlier, in James Webster, 5
Every
weeks
minute
ago,
doesn't matter.
Every minute doesn't matter. So, as we say, players don't need excuses to play poor because they like to make any excuse in the book why they do play poorly.
Sure.
But he gave them that excuse 5 weeks ago. But no, I'm sorry, but they have been perfected by playing for the chairman.
But it is going to be
and the support.
fascinating. I think that's the great thing about. I think in that respect, by Michael Carter, when I look at it, I think it's an inspired appointment. So well done, Michael Carter.
Absolutely,
for getting
it
was a great,
I'll buy into that.
fantastic story about how it came about
Yes,
as well.
yes,
Because
James Webster,
he texted James Webster to say, "Sorry, you've lost your job, mate, but
I
I
wonder if Brian texted his brother Tony to say, Tony, I'm thinking about the Wakefield job. I wonder if Tony went, well, we're going to beat it 4 weeks ago. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But a change in attitude. I mean, you said there, a change in attitude. Just
It's
a
got to be,
simple
David,
change in attitude
David,
makes a big difference.
David, there has to be a whole change, and it has to come from the players, individually and collectively. Surely them players have had a team meeting by themselves, without the coach, without the chairman, without anybody. They'd say, listen, this quite simply is not good enough. It's quite simply not good enough. The way they're performing. And an example on Sunday, Richie Owen. The lack of urgency, how lethargic he was, and that ball was never ever going to go into touch, and it took him a day and ace it, and then when he realised the Castleford players under the sticks, it was absolute total lack of urgency. How he wants to play the game.
When it comes to that middle 8, and the competition's going to be against the likes of Bradford and Lee, maybe Dewsbury now, and maybe Halifax,
Sheffield
maybe, or Featherstone. Are you saying?
Or London.
I think they've got Wakefield have got every chance to do this and survive, because this is a battle for survival now, and that's why he's been appointed to survive in Super.
But in one sense, that will be a condemnation of the new structure, because if Wakefield can coast through the first 23 weeks,
but that was always a weakness of the structure,
and then suddenly revive in the middle 8 and retain a Super League place.
But James Webster was
needs
right.
thinking about.
But James Webster, it might have cost James Webster's job, but he's actually
because
right in that way.
In a sense, he is, and you never know. Other teams might copy that in future.
Well, I'll tell you what. Then there's a straight answer to that. Promotion, relegation, bottom 2 go, the top 2.
Well,
from
no, I don't think. I think
it'll stop that. It'll stop that. It will stop that.
I don't think it's circumstances of the Wakefield fan. I don't think any club would choose to do that because it's such a tight battle to get in the top 8.
But if they fall away at the bottom, say after 15 or 16 weeks, they might think, well, let's now, focus on the middle 8. There is that danger to me, it seems to me.
Yeah. And we're all getting very depressed about Wakefield and looking at them and going, if they get relegated, what happens to the club because of the financial situation that they're in? They still have to pay a fair chunk to rent the ground every week, don't they? And if they lose the Super League money, then that could be a big blow. But you only have to look at Castleford. 2-3 years ago, we were talking about Castleford in a similar way, and they've shown the way. You can revive things. You can make it sparkle again.
Get the right appointment, and that was what they did, isn't it? Yeah. They put Darryl Powell in charge, and it was an inspired appointment.
And if Brian Smith might be.
Yeah, if Smithy, is anything, half as good as that.
And you had Steve Gill working behind the scenes. Still have. And I think this chairman, this Michael. I mean, I don't know him well. I've only spoken to him. He seems a really good bloke.
Michael's an excellent fella, and he's got the Wakefield club at heart, as you well know, Martin. But again, the emphasis has got to be on the players. You can put so much on the coach, and when they're playing badly, then the blame gets put on them. But the players have got to take responsibility on performance. And we talked about Darryl Powell there at Castleford. The players like playing under him. They like to express themselves. He puts a smile on their face there. But the players like that, so they respond to the coach who gives them that there. But I'm sorry, these Wakefield players have to take full responsibility of what is happening at this moment in time.
Stuart Dickens said as much, obviously in an interim capacity. Stuart Dickens said as much after the game against Castleford that it's down to the players, and ultimately, of course, it is. But Brian Smith could be a disciplinarian. He'll bring a structure. And I think in those middle 8s,
I was just going to say,
Super League's gone.
I was just going to say that to you. So the way Wakefield are playing now, the way that Brian Smith coaches, not man-managed coaches, how do we think Wakefield are going to play? Are they going to play a tight round the ruck area?
Well, they're certainly tight now,
or are they going to try and play with a bit of freedom? How will they play?
They're going to start to tackle first, hopefully.
Yeah.
That might help. If they start to tackle, maybe that'll and defend the line. They've got a chance. They've got a chance. But I think in terms of Super League, these first 23 rounds, it's gone. It's about the middle eights.
But if they don't tackle, they won't be in the side. That's the point under Brian Smith, I think. So I think we will see some changes.
And Michael Carter did hint as well. There's maybe a little manoeuvre within the bank balance to maybe help out.
Which players would want to go to Wakefield?
Goodness knows.
Well, you don't know. Maybe he's bringing Aussie. Maybe might bring a couple of Aussies over that we don't know about.
Maybe he's got 2 more Smith brothers we don't know about.
Yeah. No, he will have some contacts, won't he? Let's face it.
One player, sadly, we won't be watching again. Announcement this week that he's retired due to persistent bangs to the head. Daryl Golding. I mean, that's a big blow, isn't he? Because he's a nice lad, good player.
Isn't he?
Yeah, 27, huge, and he's been a quality player, hasn't he? He's as an international quality player for Wigan. They're good. What the great thing about Daryl was, he was very solid defensive, but he was a great winger centre, wasn't he? Wasn't always selfish from the point of view. Charlie scored loads and loads of tries. That's why you made him an international winger from there. Very, very sad, and unfortunately, it's where the game is with the collisions and the speed of the game, I guess. But very sad because he's a quality player, and certainly at 27.
Well, it's beginning to happen, isn't it? Players retiring because of persistent head injuries. Lance Ahaya, we've had already this season, and you imagine it might be a growing trend with the protocols now on concussion.
Yeah.
Clubs, medical staff are far more cautious now than they've ever been before. And who can blame them? Because we don't want to see players getting into their 60s and 70s and then suffering dementia from injuries they've sustained playing the game.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly difficult. This is a young man who should be at the height of his career at 27, and it's been cut short. And he's on medical advice told, you play again, we don't know what could happen to you. He's got his health, but he's got a long time ahead of him. There's a duty of care on the field, but there's a duty of care, I think, off the field as well to look after Daryl Goldings.
Yeah, but also that, in light of it, unfortunately that is actually retired. Let's not forget, rugby league is a contact sport, and we know from kids when we take it up there and go into professionalism, sometimes this may happen. I know as a player myself, I depressed my cheekbone twice and all this sort of thing. So unfortunately, these things do happen. I'm not everybody won't have to retire due to concussion injuries, but unfortunately, it's the nature of the sport, isn't it?
Yeah. Measure the fella that is a Hulkingston Rovers player. But Wigan, his former club, put out a statement saying how saddened they were. I think that's a measure of the man, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's just a measure of the sport, isn't it?
Yeah, but also he was
a
key part of that double-winning Wigan side in 2013. One at Wembley and one at Old Trafford. He was a key part of that. But Josh Charnley said that. I think he put out a tweet. How much he owed him because it was a great centre-wing partnership.
Well, I was always amazed that Wigan let him go. Really, that when he went to Hulkingston Rovers, that was one of the more surprising moves.
That was coinciding with Joe Tompkins coming back, didn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway,
I don't know whether Joe was intended to.
Just wish him all the success what he decided to do after the game.
Sure.
Hopefully.
Matters Umbasada, just harking back to Magic a little bit as well. I had the great pleasure of speaking briefly to Lee Radford after their victory against Hulkingston Rovers.
Delighted.
Unbelievable what's
Delighted for Lee because he's under pressure. The demands for success, not just week in and week out, but also to bring a bit of trophy there. It has been pretty hard for him. The players at times haven't performed to their ability, but now he's getting his big game players back. He's getting his big name players back. They're playing into a good structure now, what they want to play in. What they're doing, they're running hard, they're hitting the defensive line very hard, quick play the balls. The halfbacks are steady now, and the way they performed at the weekend by winning that derby, it just shows you what they can do. And I think the performance of Gareth Ellis from mine was the best performance I've seen him in a black and white shirt.
That's right, but the key thing for them is that the halfbacks are playing.
Yeah.
And they've had Snyder out for quite a bit of the season so far. He's now back. And he's playing like they hoped he would do, alongside Leon Price. And I thought that was another great try, by the way, when Leon Price broke through and Rankin scored at the weekend.
So you mentioned Rankin there. I think he's found his position at full.
Yeah, so do I.
I think he's found his
Which
position.
is unfortunate for Jamie Shaw, isn't it?
Yeah. They're a hard-working team, though. I mean, not Ellis is fantastic, but Mark Minicello's been
he's been terrific.
And Danny Houghton, he tops the tackle counts virtually every week. I think he's terrific again.
We're going to have to hold it there. Hold that thought. Lots more to talk about, though, and we'll be back talking a lot more in part 3. Welcome back to the Arc at Headingley for the third and final part of this week's Back Chat. We've talked about the Magic Weekend. This is the bit where we talk about Australian influences on the game, the NRL. We're going to talk about State of Origin in just a sec. But just before that, one Australian who has been catching your eye, and we talked about Wakefield before the game, Glenn Morrison, the Dewsbury coach. Quite a few people thought he might be the next Wakefield coach, but I don't think Dewsbury wanted to let him go, did they?
No, they didn't. The chairman wouldn't allow Michael Carter to speak to him, unfortunately. But that just, again, just shows you what a good job he's doing, Morrison. And I know a little bit about it because my son's at Dewsbury, and as I say, what Morrison's got, again, it's that man management. He's letting the players express themselves, allowing them to play how they want to do it, and he's getting great rewards. And who would have thought Dewsbury would be in the top 4 this part of the season? Yeah. And it's certainly a happy place to be. And I think the chairman has rightly said, no, Glenn, you're staying here. You said you want to take us so far, and then when he takes them so far, they may move somebody else in. But at the moment, Morrison and the players are doing an excellent job.
Fascinating, that championship as well, because you got Lee. Nobody can beat them at the moment. Then you got Bradford, whose only defeat was to Lee, and then below that you've got Sheffield, you've got Dewsbury, you've got Featherstone, you've got Halifax, all in the mix. Yeah. And I think the championship this season has been terrific, and on the back of a successful summer bash event in Blackpool, all part of the championship's elbow, and they're going to become part of that. This is where I think the system does work. Then that middle 8, the championship and the Super League come together. And I think this real inclusivity
From that point of view,
as well.
It's very exciting, isn't it?
It is. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It gives them hope where once there was none.
Yeah, that's
once upon a time it was kind of a perennial battle between Featherstone and Lee and Sheffield and Backley.
But they're parts
and nothing to aim for beyond that.
Right.
But
And I think as well, when you look at the Dewsbury crowds, the fans are coming back as well because they're playing exciting rugby league. They're not just winning the games by playing robotic, boring stuff. They're playing exciting, smart rugby league.
Some of the championship stuff, isn't it, Gary? Some great stuff in that.
I thought the summer bash was terrific, actually. I thought the Workington-Whitehaven game in that summer bash, the opening game, was a tremendous spectacle, actually.
Yeah. And it was 2 weeks ago, and I know they've lost since, but London Broncos, they just seem to get a little breath of life back with Andrew Henderson pulling on the boots again and getting out there. Hendo, he plays a good game, still plays a good game.
Oscar Thomas scoring a hat-trick looked terrific in the summer bash, didn't he?
Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous. So what a great prospect. Great to hear young kids like him being interviewed after games, with a strong southern accent. We don't all speak with northern accents, do we?
We don't. Some of us don't have an accent at all. Some of us speak proper.
No.
Right, okay, so championship, really looking forward to the mid-eights and all that goes with that. Just casting our eyes to what happened in Australia last week, the State of Origin game. We all get so excited about State of Origin, and for good reason. Is it a little bit overhyped now? Is it delivering as well as it should?
I don't think it's overhyped, Dave, to be honest with you, but the game itself, it is boring, isn't it? All it is now is just that robotic bump, field position, kick, build pressure, kick, build pressure. It is becoming very, very boring to watch, but that's the way they play it. That's the way the intensity and the way the origin is. So you've got to accept that fact, haven't you? To watch it from a neutral, you may say it's very exciting. But yeah, it is, as a game, overhyped from a point of view of the standard of the game itself.
I thought this game last week was a much better game, for example, than the games last year. The second game last year in particular, I thought was a dreadful, tedious, over-structured game, which, for the first time ever, I watched an Origin game and really didn't like it, and that's very unusual for me. And I thought this game was actually, there was some great stuff in it, the great try that was created by Josh Dugan for New South Wales, and it was a great ending, of course, with a late field goal by Cooper Cronk. And it did get when you say overhyped, it was the most watched television program in Australia so far this year. So that suggests it wasn't really overhyped. It was massive. And of course, the next game is going to be played in Melbourne at Melbourne Cricket Ground. Now again, they can't really afford to have that overstructured, just one-out rugby being played there, because I remember many years ago they played an Origin game at Melbourne Cricket Ground in front of an AFL audience. And they started shouting boring, because they did make it like that. They didn't go back there, until now. So it's a big test for them, I think.
Well, I think the way they will play the game, it will be structured. And again, this is a harsh lesson for us at international level. let us not follow that structure, because if we do, we won't. And
We can't do it.
Nowadays, I call it, winning the arm wrestle and winning this. We can't fall into that structure. They don't like it. As we saw last year with New Zealand, Sean Johnson playing off the cuff a little bit. That's a structure, and that's the sort of game plan we have to come in, because we ain't going to do
We've
anything
talked about this before. Origin is actually one of the best things for Australian rugby league, and one of the worst things as well, because they are. I think what you're right, Dave. They're consumed by it. It consumes everything else, but it's consuming the Australian team, I think. New Zealand are now the #1 nation. Are you right, Gary?
Oh, they are.
And someone was saying this week what that game cried out. I think it was our colleague Gareth Walker who said what that game cried out for was a Sean Johnson in there, or a Sam Tom, something a bit different. And there's nothing different about the 34 who are on duty.
And the thing is, that Queensland side, seen as a bit of a dad's army side, they not only won that game. They're going to be probably favourites in Melbourne to win at the MCG, and then they go to Brisbane for the last game, possibly to do a whitewash.
And it will be the nucleus of the Australians. Well, they don't play well next year anyway, do they? So it may be the nucleus of the Australian team. But we can't fall into that structure.
It really, I mean, why? I mean, we got a good example at the start of the year with the World Club Championship, and Tony Smith made the point. His Warrington side beaten by St George Illawarra, but he said how easy it was for Warrington to make yards early in a count in their own half because they got wide.
Because they moved the ball.
So why don't Australia?
Well, there's a very interesting game a couple of weeks ago. Western Suburbs played North Queensland and lost at home 8-0, and everybody in Australia said it's probably the most boring game that's been seen this year in the NRL. And Jason Taylor, the Western Suburbs coach, defended the way they played and said, we're focused on defence. Defence wins games, so we're not going to take chances in attack. And yet, of course, they scored no points.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you do that. That guy, Jason Taylor, if I were in charge of that club, I'd sack him immediately.
I'll tell you
because with that sort of restricted view of the game, you're never going to be successful, in my opinion.
One thing for sure in any sport, and certainly rugby league, if you don't score more points than the opposition, you don't win. So if you've no creativity, if you want to play structure, no passing the ball, then you're not going to win any games.
Gary, how worried are you, though, that the England coach is now steeped in the NRL?
Very worried.
Sydney Roosters is part of that culture.
I'm very worried.
I share that view, Gary.
I'm very worried, and as we saw last year, right, it seems to be a structure where we have to take players off at a certain time, whether they're playing good, bad, and indifferent. The huge call was last year, Darryl Clark. He was absolutely ripping it to pieces.
Brett Ferris.
What's he going to do? So why do we have to copy?
Yeah.
If your best players certainly are playing well, keep them out there, because I'll tell you, players want to play for 80 minutes. They don't want to be coming off after 12, 15, 20 minutes. They love it. They're enjoying it out there. Keep them out there. Macca, please change your structure, because against New Zealand, they will play the off-the-cuff.
Whenever we've beaten Australia, it's always been because we've played players who the Australians don't know how to handle. Tricky players, we can think of lots of them going back over the years. And you look at the history, when we try and play like them, we never beat them.
No. The trouble is, it's getting so long. I still had fair hair then. It's starting to become a long time.
I used to have some
hair as well.
What's hair? But we're up to I think it's round 13 coming up, isn't it, this week? And that's the magic round, isn't it? In terms of everybody who said
having a Newcastle.
No. Although they are thinking about having a magic weekend. But anyway, that's another issue. The round where the players have said we're moving to such a club next week, it becomes binding after this week. So this will be like a nervous few days for Wigan, because Sam Tompkins obviously coming back, but as long as the other fella goes to Auckland in the first place. So get this week out of the way. Wigan know they've got the fella back, and Sam's back this week as well, isn't he?
Yes, he was back at the weekend.
Last weekend,
and the Warriors won. So it's they beat Newcastle at home, didn't they? So I think Sam had the coach Andrew McFadden at the Warriors made some very, very positive remarks about Sam Tompkins last week, and said how much they'd missed him while he was out and how great it was.
I'll tell you what, a question I'm being asked now all the time, certainly from Leeds fans, is who would you pick, Hardacre or Tompkins at fullback for England? Who would you pick?
Well, that's a question I put in the press conference after the Leeds-Wigan game to Brian McDermott, because it's what his answer was, probably will go with Tompkins. But you've got to have Hardacre in there somewhere.
Yeah, you've got to have him in
so
the
they're probably
17.
going to have him at centre, aren't they?
I think.
But to me, my premise of that question was, I think he's an out-and-out fullback.
Yes.
Yeah, he's an out-and-out fullback. It
reminds me. I mean, that when he made that tackle, or to make that tackle on George Williams, it just looked like Chris Odlinski going across there. It was one of the great.
It did. One thing to bear in mind is we're playing New Zealand this year, and the New Zealanders will know all about Tompkins.
Yeah.
They won't know all about Hardacre, will they?
No.
And that's
but
the thing to
there's
bear
one
in
thing
mind.
known about Tompkins, and there's another thing stopping him. He's so off the cuff that you know that he's likely to do stuff, but I mean, you can't necessarily stop him. The perfect fullback is Tompkins going forward and Hardacre defending, isn't it? And you can't have the perfect world.
Yeah, but I think Zach Hardacre is such at the moment. Look, we know the kid's had these disciplinary problems and various other things. And I hope he gets it together because he's too good a player for us not to have it as part of that international setup.
Yeah.
And he really is. To me, this season, he just seems to have grown and come on again.
And I think there's a real danger. I think Steve McNamara is going to make a decision, one or the other, and that's a big decision. And whoever he picks is going to do well in that fullback position. I think it'll be a real danger if you dilute that and put Hardacre in the centres because he's not.
He can't keep the both players hanging on. He's got to be making a phone call maybe now and say, listen, Zach, this is where I'm going to be playing it. This is where you've got to be thinking about there now.
But not at centre. I wouldn't play Hardacre at centre.
If he's not going to be picking up fullback, then unfortunately he'll have to be on the bench because he's got that utility tag, I guess, hasn't it? So from there. But at the moment, it's great that we've got two quality players. As we know, as we've said earlier, we don't struggle for wingers, centres, quality forward.
The key thing is who we're going to pick at half.
But again, it's just
What about Hardacre at fullback and Tompkins?
No. He can't create anything, David. No. He's not an organiser. He won't have.
Well, if you have an organising scrum half.
No.
Widdop looks a better option there, isn't he?
Widdop is the main man to organise. Your scrum halves, they should be your support player.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They follow the forwards around. Anybody who's looking for a nice pass away, your scrum half is your guy who supports the forwards.
Well, what about Widdop and Tompkins then? What about Widdop and Tompkins?
Sam playing at scrum half then maybe. Maybe it's a scrum half from a point. But then what you would do, you would put more pressure then on Gareth Widdop, going to first man, then going to second man, doing too much organisation. That would be the problem.
Right. So you want two pivots either side?
I want two pivots either side. Say Matty Smith's a good organiser, so he will take the pressure off Widdop. Then what happens is Widdop doesn't have to be touching the ball all the time. He just has to be looking there. This is where the gaps are here. They've only got 3 defenders here. They've got a weak defender. I'll be looking there to create that 4 and 3. That's your most important position.
Yeah. And the strength of Tompkins since he's switched. I mean, he started as a standoff, didn't he? Obviously, but he's switched to fullback. Is he can read and pick and choose when he comes in and loop round.
It's interesting talking about Widdop. It's interesting to see that St George are joint top of the NRL now with Widdop playing with Benji Marshall.
Yeah.
Just very interesting that, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other thing as well about Zach Hardacre as well, as opposed to Tompkins, and Tompkins has been exposed at the international game under the high ball.
Yeah.
Now, we've not seen Zach Hardacre really under the pub in international rugby do that, but you stick a high ball on Zach Hardacre and he gobbles it up.
You look every time there's a high ball go up, you see him underneath it. You're almost looking away, make yourself a cup of coffee because you know he's going to catch it.
And the thing about New Zealand is they're going to be coming with some massive forwards, and they're going to be trying to create play near the line, big wingers of course as well. So you probably need a big full back to. Yeah.
We also need a great kicking game as well, and that's where we've sometimes been desperately lacking as well.
But you mentioned their forwards. I'll tell you what, we've got a big pack of forwards, Martin. We've got a huge pack of forwards with the Burgess boys and James Graham, who's the best front row there. We don't struggle for hookers from there. It's that creativity.
So you won't give Adam Cuthbertson the call then?
Oh, don't start him on that one. I saw a team you picked the other week. You had the 2 Burgess boys in the second row, didn't you?
I did indeed, yeah.
Going for size.
Well, to be honest, I'm going for size and power. That's the way it goes, doesn't it? There, but one of them could play out wide. They're not slow, the Burgess boys, So I would have them in the back row there, and we want to take a backward step against them. That is not the issue, For us to win the Test series. Pick your smart players, don't play a robotic McNamara and let us play off the cuff. Let's put some chips over the top. Don't stop players maybe going for interceptions. Let them express themselves.
The only thing that goes with chips, Gary, is fish. Right, let's remind ourselves of what we've got to look ahead to this weekend as far as coverage of the NRL is concerned here on Premier Sports, and some mouth-watering matches to look forward to as well. The Broncos against the Seagulls, kicking everything off on Friday morning. This is a live game from Suncorp, 10:35, my favourite ground in the world, Suncorp Stadium. And after that, it's a delayed coverage. We've got delayed coverage, but you can watch the 2 matches more or less back-to-back. The Tigers against the Titans from Leichhardt Oval. That's a 1 o'clock showing here on Premier Sports. Saturday, 3 matches to look forward to. They're all live. The first one starts at 6 in the morning. Newcastle Knights against Canberra Raiders at the Hunter Stadium. That's 6 a.m. as we said. Then straight after that, 8:30, it's like Magic Weekend all over again, isn't it? 8:30, the Rabbitohs against the Warriors at the NIB Stadium. That's 8:30 live. And then straight after that, at 10:30, at the Pepper Stadium, Nothing to be sneezed at there. The Panthers against the Storm. So magic weekend from your sofa. How good the atmosphere is up to you. Sunday morning, 7 a.m, live game. The Sharks against the Roosters. Is our only Sunday game, and then why not take Monday off work? It is June after all, and there are 2 rugby league matches on the telly, and tell them we let you do that. 7 o'clock the first one, the Bulldogs against the Dragons from the ANZ Stadium, and then at 10 a.m, the Parramatta Eels against the North Queensland Cowboys from the Pertec Stadium, where I think they still have the Brett Kenny stand at the Pertec Stadium. There was nothing to dismiss about a ground when they had the Brett Kenny stand. Right, also, the State of Origin coming up as well. Of course, we've had the first game, 27th of May. We saw that, 1 point in it. Will it be as exciting at the MCG Stadium in Melbourne? It's Wednesday, the 17th of June is game 2. That's a 10:30 start. That's live coverage. And then just one for your diary as well, because into July, game 3, Suncorp Stadium, 10:30 live as well on Wednesday, the 8th of July. And you can check out all of that and lots more on the website premiersports.tv. So that's www.premiersports, don't forget that final S, .tv. So lots of fantastic NRL action to look forward to. We've got lots more fantastic chat to look forward to. Richard Stead will be with you in a couple of weeks' time, and another panel of illuminaries. But from today, thank you very much to Gary Schofield, to Martin Sadler, and also to Chris Irvin. Until next time, goodbye.